All right, my friends, hocus pocus. It is our final math test day. I had a couple friends who aced it, and so you guys already have this turkey sheet on your desk. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. However, the rest of you guys, check it out. That means that you are sitting up, you're being proactive to tell that brain it's time to learn. Because if you slump, you're telling your brain it's time to take a rest, and then you're not going to get your best score. So please name, number, date on top. That's kind of huge. I had a friend who did not put their name on their pretest, and so that's part of why you are here. Sit down, buddy, right now. We're name, number, date on our test. And today is the 7th, so 12, 7, 20.
I know, I found this in the door.
If you're getting ready for a test, how should you be sitting in your seat? Okay, I wanted to go over some things on this because you might want to put some quick notes. So are we answering the questions right now? No, we're just doing a preview. I want you to be ready to see if there's some notes to help remind you of some things to do. For number 1 and 2, they are just word problems. Now, they don't give you a ton of space, but you guys know that I expect an equation, answer, and label. So you might want to remind yourself next to number 1 that you're going to need an equation, an answer, and a label. You need all 3 of those things to get all of your points, Skylar. You might want to jot that down on your test so that you don't forget. If you just give me an answer with no label and no equation, you're still going to miss a couple points on that problem. So that's for 1 and 2.
I don't like labels.
Numero tres.
Numero tres.
This one you get to use that graph to solve your problem. So if you guys would do this for me, it helps you visualize it, I think. Go ahead and draw like a box around number 3 and that chart so that you realize that chart belongs to number 3. What does that chart belong to?
Number 3.
They want to know how many more people attended the game on March 5th than on February 28th. And so you can use your chart to jump and find that answer, or you could use an equation for that, okay? Are you solving it now or later? Later. That way you know that we're ready to roll. The same thing goes for number 4. They want you, says a group of swimmers has a contest to see how long they can hold their breaths. The results are shown in the table. Well, that's this part. They want you to make a line plot of the data. Hocus pocus. This is what they mean. You're taking all this information and you're plugging it in to this line plot chart. Theirs is in mixed up order. Oh, it's not in mixed up order. All you have to do is put your plot. So if there's 5 swimmers did it in 45 seconds, you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the big deal is your dots must be the same size and nice and neat. Turn your page. Numero 5. It says write the time as minutes after an hour. That means that if you find the digital time on the clock, that's the one where you can literally crisscross. It's so many minutes after whatever hour you are in.
Can't we just use this?
I would write this down now so you don't forget and just write the time. Because if you write the time, it's wrong. You've got to write it as blank minutes after blank. So if the time on my clock was 9:36, I would write 36 minutes after 9 o'clock. If the time was 12:03, I would write it as 3 minutes after 12 o'clock.
But how do we know what time it is? Because you look at the clock.
All right, numero 6.
Numero 6.
It says estimate the length of the fork in inches and then measure it to the nearest 1/4 inch. So I actually want you all to do your estimate, your guess now without your ruler. Remembering that an inch is about, if you bend your thumb like this is about an inch. And so if you kind of want to guess and think, I think it's about this many inches, go ahead and put your guess here. Like you might guess that it's like 4.5 inches or whatever your guess is. I just made a random number, so I might not be close at all. But guess how long you think it is. Later, you will measure it to the nearest 1/4 inch with your ruler.
Does it have to be like 4.5 or 4?
It could be like 4, 4.25, 4.5, or 5, or 4 3/4, or 5, 5.25, 5.5, 5 3/4. Anything to the nearest
How do you
1/4
do
inch.
a quarter?
Right like that.
So which one is about?
So you will measure that one later for the actual one. If you bend it from your knuckle to the tip of your thumb, it's about an inch. Yep.
I just started right there. Wow.
Ooh, that's, yep. Yeah, you can also do that. All right, 7 and 8, they just want you to find the times on the clock. However, if you were one of my friends that on your pre-test, you accidentally skipped the second one and that was a problem you missed, just because you accidentally skipped it, maybe put stars next to both so you don't forget to pass over, because it's a little different format when they're side by side. And same for 9, 10, and 11. Those ones are just pretty simple, self-explanatory. You're going to circle which estimate you think would match the picture, but make sure that you do 9, 10, and 11. Yes, ma'am?
Are we going back like on the pre-test we did? Are we gonna do?
I'll pull you and read them to you, yep. All right, turn your page.
Turn your page, turn your page, turn your page.
This is a very important part, so I need you to make sure that you are on this graph here with me and ready to really look and be ready to mark what I tell you to, because it's a little funky.
Funky.
Okay, I'm looking at number 12. What am I on?
Number 12.
Third graders, you are going to use this table from the top to plug in information to number 12 and to plug in information to number 13. This is your chance to prove that you know how to make a pictograph and you know how to make a bar graph.
I don't know how to make
So I wanted to talk through this with you really quick. First of all, that's a pretty fancy dancy crown, and so we're going to make it a little bit more simple so that you can draw it in your pictograph. Capiche? Let's go ahead and just make an M, or actually like an M with an extra point, and then connect the bottom.
over it.
Yep. Instead of their fancy crown, go ahead and make it be like a 3-pointed crown. Equals blank. We're going to decide that together.
2. And then together.
So let's look at the data on the top chart. Who can tell me how many chess players are at the beginner level? Maddie?
130.
Good. How many chess players are at the master level, Dax?
60.
And how many players are at the expert level, Riley? So those are some pretty big numbers. 30, 60, and 130. What's something that we can do to all of those numbers to make them a little bit smaller to deal with in our brains right off the bat? Jade?
You could do it by 30s.
You could do it by 30s. 30, 60, 90, 120, 150. That'd be pretty hard to find a place for the 130 though.
No, 36. It's 36.
Keegan?
80.
Thank you for using GTA.
You can just take away the 0.
Oh, take away the zeros. So then we would be dealing with like 3, 6, and 13. That sounds a little easier to deal with, right? So I'd have like 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. It's still sneaky though to try to find where 13 would be in between 12 and 15, right? Because it's not right in between. So what could I count by instead, Dax? Well, that was counting by 30s. Maybe instead of counting by 3s, I could count by...
10.
I could do 10s, except for I don't think that I've got enough. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. Not enough.
20s.
Maybe 20s? Let's try that. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140.
10.
Alrighty, third grade. We are looking at the bar graph first. What are we looking at? And that's number 13. So we decided the smartest thing to count by here is by 20s. So your first line is always going to be 0. And then you're going to go 20, 40, 60. What comes next? 80. Good. 100. Yes. And that's it. Now you have a couple numbers in here, 30 and 130. Those ones aren't on our chart, but can we figure out where those bars would go to?
In the middle. Can we just
And Skylar, you said in the middle, right? 30 would go right in between 20 and 40, and 130 would go right in between 120 and 140, right? Now here's the tip. Focus, focus. If we're counting by 20s for this, would that be a good amount to use for our key with our crown?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say each crown equals
But what about
20
30?
also.
But what
Well,
about
can we do half of a crown like this?
Yes.
You bet. There's one more thing I wanted to help you with on this bar graph, and that's that the words beginner, master, and expert from up here, those are pretty long to fit in here. So instead, go ahead and write B for beginner, M for master, and E for expert. That works too. Oh, yep. Savannah?
For the, when it says like the chest mark where we put the key in, the other one, that one, how will we put 130 of those crowns in
Well, if each crown equals 20, are you going to draw 130 of them?
there? No.
No.
But what if they don't fit on the box part?
So if you count by 20s up to 130, it'd be like 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120. So you'd have 6 crowns there, and then a full another crown would get 140. So you need to do a half. So you'll have 6 and a half. And if you run out of space, if it's really hard to squeeze in, it's okay if it goes outside of the box there. Yep. Third grade, don't forget on this bar graph, you will need your labels. So here, they'll have to tell me, well, what describes what the beginner, master, and expert is? How do they describe that up above? And down below, you'll have to tell me, well, what describes what these numbers are? What do they call that up above in that chart? Right, so make sure that you get those labels on there. You can use the hashtag sign as a shortcut for number. That works.
Which one is the hashtag sign?
One looks like this. Man, you guys are lucky. You've been having a good morning, so I'm full of helpful things for you this morning. P.S. Your mystery walker did not get their point. However, my line was awesome, lining up at the door before we left, and you had a positive music report, so you get 2 points to start your morning. What do you think?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
My mystery walker just came running out of the door, so we got to make sure that we're ready to line up leaving music also. Any more questions about 12 and 13 before I move on? Okay, Eli?
Can we do something easier like a star or a dot?
You could do a dot instead of the crown. I would be okay with that.
Because
Yep.
the crown is really hard for me to.
Yep, that is okay with me. That's a smart thing to notice when you're making a pictograph. It's got to be something that you can draw easily so they can tell what it is.
I can draw a star.
Did you have a question?
Oh, wait. So for the hashtag, what do we put down below?
Well, this part's describing my number of players. You still need to figure out what to write on this label that's describing the beginner, master, and expert. Did you have a question,
Do we have
Skylar?
to put name, number, day on every single page?
Nope, just on the front page. Works for me.
Well,
Alrighty, moving on here. For number 14 and 15, you're just going to use that graph to answer each of them. For number 16, they give you a timeline and it is a normal one. It's counting by fives. I would like you to use this number line or draw your clock here. That way you don't have to get your time tools out. Back side.
Backside. Backside. Backside.
They're all normal word problems. It tells you to use your show your work, or this one says or use your clock. There's a tip there. Or when you get down to number 20, it says don't forget, and it tells you all the things that you need so you can get all of your points. Don't forget to have a title, bottom label, line plot, and then here's the tricky part. Last class.
Yes.
You would not believe how many third graders have forgotten this part in the past because you make this chart, but there's actually also a question. So there's a star that says answer question because they ask you which pencil length is the most common, and they want you to put that answer right here. Your graph title goes right here. So you might want to put a star there so that you don't forget that because it's a really easy thing to skip once you've made that graph. Because that's part of your points for this problem.
What is a line plot?
The plot, that's the ones where you put your dots, your plots on the graphs. Okay.